I know what you're thinking. Steve, there's no chance I can make that pasta shape. And normally, I'd agree with you because I myself was also intimidated by this pasta shape. But I was wrong. This pasta looks hard. It's actually stupid easy. And it's one of the more satisfying and fun pastas you can make. So today we're gonna be demystifying this Sardinian tradition that's served around Christmas time. This is Culurgiones. And of course, this recipe and all my holiday recipes will be in my holiday plan of attack link down in the description. And this recipe starts with pasta dough. So this is a Sardinian pasta, a Southern Italian pasta. That takes us to our semolina dough, semolina and water. Egg dough is usually more northern from the richer part of Italy. So we've got some durum wheat semolina flour. We're gonna go with 454 grams. Now, I got myself a little humidity tracker. Now in the summer, that humidity was around 35 to 40%. Getting cold, that's dropped down to 27. That's been there to kind of keep me in tune of how to acclimate from season. So what I might anticipate is my normal ratio might be a touch dry, but we're gonna go ahead and see. We're just gonna pour our flour into the center of our board, and then with the bottom, just make a well. Make it nice and big so you don't have it coming up to the very top. And then we've got about 225 grams of warm, tepid water. If you know it's gonna be a little bit drier, maybe you wanna add a little bit more, but we're gonna just go with our ratio and see where we end up. 2 utensils, a bench scraper, and a fork, and we start with the fork. And we're just gonna start to slowly incorporate the flour from the walls into the water. And slowly that flour will hydrate and thicken the water into sort of like a pancake batter. And now water hydrates in flour a lot easier than egg, which is often why you'll use a lot more egg from a weight standpoint than you do water when you make pasta. So now it's thick, right? Got like a nice thick mound in the center. Now we can switch to our bench scraper. And I'm gonna start by sort of scraping underneath it, almost getting flour to sort of get underneath all that wet mass in the middle. And just sort of coat any wet areas in the dough, and then just start piling the dry flour on top, cut. Then fold back, and cut again. Right now you just have dry flour with 2 wet clumps in there, right? So when we cut it, you're cutting those clumps in with the dry flour, slowly hydrating it all. Always kind of scraping everything towards the center. And eventually you're gonna get to the point where like nothing sticks to your hand when you grab it, or very little does. And then almost like a pie dough, you can sort of start to have it come together. Just compress it and then start to fold in all that flour. In the beginning, that dough is gonna be real shaggy like this, but all the kneading we're gonna do is gonna bring it all together. Just constantly folding the dough, making sure there's even distribution of the flour. And now the dough is starting to show some structure. And so I'm just gonna knead it onto that flour. And once we've got this kind of nice dough ball, all I'm gonna do, scrape up these bits and then start to knead it onto it and try and pick up all these bits that'll take, and any that don't, we're gonna get out of there. That dough feels nice. I don't wanna get it too dry, so now I'm gonna just move the flour over. If I need a little bit, it'll be there. But now I'm gonna start to work it and see where we're at. I'm gonna be really tough with it this time, really trying to like develop the gluten. Gonna put more force into the dough to help it come together in this first round of kneading. You could do the grandma way of doing this, right? You're just rolling it out into a log. Then when it gets long, you fold it back on top of itself, and then you're gonna do the same thing. Or you can do it's kind of like a one-handed. You're gonna turn it and press forward with one hand, turn it with the other, pull it back, and then you can kind of get into a groove. And if you do it this way, your hand sort of naturally pushes you into like a counterclockwise motion. So then you pick it up and move it over. Do this for about 3 to 5 minutes. Then once it's starting to look nice, I'm just gonna ease up on the pressure and just kind of smooth it out into a nice ball. The bottom is able to seal, the top is nice and smooth, and we definitely have some gluten developing. Take some plastic, we're gonna place it in, crimp it all around. I made an assumption it was gonna be a bit drier, and I did hold back a tiny bit of flour, but generally that worked out. And it is better to have it a little bit on the more hydrated side for this dough than it is to have it dried out a bit. We're not gonna turn this into a shape we need to hold, but we are going to sort of manipulate it more like a ravioli, which you don't generally do with non-egg dough doughs. The egg allows that extensibility that allows you to kind of stretch dough over like a ravioli filling. But this feels right. We're gonna let this sit on the table for 20 minutes and allow it to further hydrate. Then we're gonna knead it one more time. Now we've given it a little rest, and what we should be greeted with is a much softer, hydrated dough ball, right? I don't need to knead this as violently as I did before. So I'm just gonna start to just almost like, compress it, push forward. I don't wanna really like fold it too much, but I am gonna sort of create this like spiral pattern here of working in air. So it's like every time you fold it, you're kind of folding in a little bit of air. And I'm just gonna knead it like that. Very gently, almost grabbing and turning and pushing. And you see that spiral starting to occur? That's sort of what I'm looking for. So I'm rolling it and pushing it and then moving it over, not being too rough with it. Do this for another 3 minutes. Nice closed seam, smooth, supple dough. That's ready to go. Now you can wrap this up one more time. Now we can do one of two things here. If you were just prepping this, you could then place this in the refrigerator overnight, make this all tomorrow, or we can just let this hang out for a couple hours on the board and then make it today, which is what we're going to be doing. So I'm gonna set this off to the side, and we're gonna talk about how this dish is traditionally served for the holidays. This is one of those special occasion pastas. The pastas you make for somebody's birthday, a holiday, or in this case, Christmas. And the dough is filled with potato, seasoned with mint, Parmigiano Reggiano, a little bit of butter, and it's served with a basic tomato sauce. And I'm just gonna use passata. This passata from the brand Casa Marazzo. This is the best passata you're gonna buy. It's not too thick, it's still a little loose, which means we can control the thickness. We can reduce it down, get it nice and perfect. Tastes great. From Italy. This is my favorite cheat when I don't wanna puree my whole peeled tomatoes. We're just gonna make a weekday sauce with that. Now we need to boil potatoes. So all I'm gonna do, start peeling the potatoes. For the amount of dough we're making, I think 3 pounds of these potatoes is gonna be enough. And for this dish, I'm gonna go with Yukon Gold potatoes. And then these are big, so we can cut them into quarters. Get those into a pot of water. Now I'm just gonna rinse this water out from that starch. Now you always start potatoes with cold or tepid water, room temp, just so they all come up evenly. Salt this, so we can season those potatoes while we cook. And I'm gonna place it on a stove, bring it up to a boil, then down to a simmer until they're nice and tender. Now this time of year, I'm really focused on trying to maintain the healthy lifestyle that got my body into beach shape. But this is also my busiest time of year. Now my problem is time, and sometimes I can't get to the grocery store. But with HelloFresh, meals come as raw ingredients packaged as if somebody ran to the store, and each of the meals include a recipe card with all the process on how to make it and the ingredients included. And what I like about this is that it gives me control. I can adjust the seasoning, I can add tweaks to the flavor or the process to get it just how I like it, and I can ensure it tastes great because I'm there making it. And in minutes, a fast and easy meal is prepared without much fuss, keeping me on track so I don't start ordering expensive takeout that isn't that good for me. And right now, HelloFresh has a crazy offer for my audience. You're gonna get 10 free meals on your first box at HelloFresh.com when you use the code NACSFM. Free meal applies as a discount on your first box. It's for new subscribers and it varies by plan. That's up to 10 free HelloFresh meals plus free shipping. Just go to HelloFresh.com and use the code NACSFM. Visit my link in the description. Now, while the potatoes cook, we can get started on our tomato sauce. Just got some 4 garlic cloves here. Now you can slice them, do whatever you want. I'm just gonna crack them with my hand. You can even use one of these guys. Garlic, basil, our tomatoes, a little olive oil and salt. That's it. So we got our potatoes going off to the side in a small pot. We're gonna make the sauce. So on medium-high heat, I'm gonna cover the bottom with a little bit of olive oil, and then I'm gonna toss in the basil stem and the garlic, and I'm just gonna cook that until that basil releases its flavor in the oil and that garlic becomes fragrant and begins to brown around the edges slightly. Just adds a depth of flavor to it. And like all tomato sauces, we're trying to extract the flavor of the garlic and the basil into that oil, which then translates into our tomatoes. Once that garlic's nicely browned, then we can go ahead and add in our passata. Add a little bit of water to the jar just to clean it out, get that in there, and then we're gonna season it with salt, bring it up to a simmer, and we're just gonna cook that down till perfect consistency. Not too thick, a little thicker than it is now. And we can check on our potatoes. They're almost ready, still a little tough in the center, so I'm just gonna let those cook, and once a cake tester can poke through them all the way without any resistance, this, and I'm gonna drain them off, and they're ready to be mashed. Now they're tender, I'm gonna allow them to kind of air steam. Get all that excess moisture out of there. Our potatoes are now dry. I'm just gonna get them into a potato ricer and rice them into a bowl. To that, we're gonna add 1-2 tablespoons of butter. Just gonna stir in that butter until it melts. You kinda gotta do this while they're still warm. Once the butter's melted, we go in with some pecorino cheese. A couple handfuls. And we're just all going by taste. The potatoes should taste good because we seasoned them well right out of the pot. Now I just wanna ensure we got that pecorino flavor that's prominent in there as well. We just wanna be able to sort of pick it up, form it into like a little ball like that, so that we can place it into the pasta. If you don't like this, you can sort of omit this, but one of the classic things to add to a culurgione is mint with the tomato sauce. And so what we're gonna do is just take a couple leaves, pick them off the stalk. Really adds a nice little freshness. And this is coming from somebody who like doesn't really love mint in savory foods, but this is nice. And we're just gonna pick them up and just start to layer them on top of each other. And then I'm just gonna run my knife through it once into little slices. You get these nice ribbons and they'll streak all the way through the potato. And then mix that in. Now, if you don't like mint, it's okay, leave it out. These are still amazing. That's good to go, we set that off to the side. So now our dough has rested for several hours and it's absolutely ready to be played with. The first thing I wanna do, take about 1/4 of it, cut that off and work at 1/4 at a time. Wrap the other dough up, set it off to the side, and I'm gonna start off flattening it, using a rolling pin, widening it, and then rolling it out thin. We just wanna make sure that it's nice and wide. That's how you wanna see it before it goes in. Now, as far as rolling it goes, we're gonna do it slightly different than normal. We're still gonna start at 0 and run it through, but instead of going all the way up, we're gonna go to about the 5th setting on the Mercato pasta maker, so I'm just gonna work my way up to 3, to 4, and then finally to 5. So then I'm gonna take my circle cutter. You could also use like a glass. And I'm gonna cut rounds, punch them out. And you can actually kind of re-roll this, wrap it up, and that'll go through one more time. So now, we're gonna take a mound, kind of that big. I'm gonna place it in my hand. I'm gonna plop it here. And then what I'm gonna do is form like a taco, right? Gonna press it down and open up those edges, and then here's how it starts. Very simple. You're going to push in and then take the flaps and pinch them. So you're like that. Then you're gonna push that in, which is gonna create 2 new flaps. You're gonna join them and you're gonna push it in. Then you're gonna take the new flaps, join them, and push it in. Again, flaps are created and you're pushing it out, and the potato is starting to creep out, right? So you're going to take the pinched in ends, push forward. Pinched in ends, push forward. Pinch the ends, push forward. And then you just kind of round out the tip, and there you have it. So just kind of get it in there, use my hand to just sort of compact it down. In, pinch and press, right? You wanna seal them and then submerge them into the potato while the other end comes. And so that seam is always being covered up by the new flaps created. And there's not really like having too much stuffing in there. It's supposed to sort of be pushing out. And then at the end, you still kind of fold it over itself. Any excess you pinch off and then just roll the tip. Designed to look like a grain of wheat. And then once you get the shape down, it becomes pretty easy. You just really don't want the dough to dry out. Otherwise it gets hard to kind of seal. If you don't make sure that you push these 2 pieces in all the way, they will stick out and also leave that inside exposed a little bit. And that's kind of the brilliant way to seal these. Aren't they kind of stunning? And let me know if you do this, like how much easier than you thought they would actually be. I'm curious. Now we're ready to cook these. Got my tomato sauce hot and a pot of water coming up to a boil. Let's go over to the stove. Now our sauce is a nice, perfect consistency. Now we just need to cook our culurgiones. And we got a pot of boiling water. I'm just gonna season it with some salt. Whenever you cook a pasta fresh, the less amount of time it cooks in that water, the more heavily you can season it with salt, as a general rule of thumb. Then we're gonna just gently drop in our culurgione into the water, and we're gonna allow them to cook for about 2, maybe 3 minutes. We're basically just looking for them to begin to float, and that's gonna tell you you're ready to go. Once they're done cooking, you you can either finish them in the tomato sauce like normal, but I kind of want to keep them undressed. They're just so pretty, I want them to sort of stand out on the plate and not get covered in the sauce. But you serve them however you like. Then to plate, I'm gonna go down with our tomato sauce, create a little bed for our pasta to rest on. And as you can see, that's such an incredible texture. On top of that, I'm just gonna sort of place a few of the Culurgione with some space around the plate on top of that tomato sauce. 5 should be plenty. And then some fresh mint. Actually, before you add any green, I'm gonna add just a streak of the sauce on top of the pastas, just so that they're dressed in some way. A little fresh basil, and then finish with some more grated cheese. A stunning dish, looks impossible for a mere mortal to achieve, but I assure you, you can make these. My mouth was watering before I even took that bite. Just a really nice, seasonal, fresh pasta dish. All the freshness of like a summer pasta with that potato inside, this is it. You know what's good when I finish the plate before I start talking? You wanna serve up some comfort on Christmas? This is the recipe. Gonna be in my holiday plan of attack. It's, you know, not a physical book yet. Hopefully next year, but it's still an ebook only because I update it every year. So I might cut it off next year, start selling it as a book, but this will set you up for the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, sides, appetizers, desserts, whenever I ever served you wrong. Maybe once or twice. That's all that I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself.